immunodeficiency virus. The name itself says what? That it is human immunodeficiency virus. So it causes what? It causes a immunodeficient state in your body. It causes what? It causes a state of immunocompromisation. So that is what we are talking about today. So this is a structure of HIV. HIV belongs to what category? HIV is a special class of virus called retroviruses, and under that there is a subclass called lentivirus. HIV is a subclass of that is lentivirus. What is the speciality of HIV virus? See the structure, you can very easily see what is the structure. Yes, it contains a double stranded, two single strands of RNA, and out from that RNA it can synthesize what? It can make its own DNA. That is the speciality of this virus. It has those enzymes which it can form the DNA basically. Yes, here we can see the HIV particles themselves are surrounded by a coat of fatty material. See here, it is surrounded by a coat of fatty material, and see it has spike like proteins throughout the cell wall. So what is the spike like proteins? These are basically the GP41 and GP120. The stalk like structure is GP41 and the knobby structure is GP120. So these two structures, why these two structures are important? Because they have the affinity for this CD4 receptors in our body. And after this layer, there is another blue colored layer. You can very well see, there is one blue colored layer. It is another layer of protein basically, and inside there is a bullet shaped nucleocapsid, which is very important because it contains the single stranded, two copies of single stranded RNA and the very important enzyme which is known as the reverse transcriptase. Using that enzyme only it can synthesize DNA from its RNA. Generally what happens? Generally you can synthesize only DNA from RNA. RNA from DNA is not done. Because of this reverse transcriptase enzyme only you can synthesize this. It is written that what are the different structures of this. Spikes are made up of, the knobs and handles are made up of GP120 and GP41, and just below the envelope there is another matrix protein, that is P17. Another below that matrix there is another layer of protein which is known as a P24, forming the viral core for the capsid. And then it contains the reverse transcriptase, the three important enzymes. Why these enzymes are important? Because when you are giving treatment for HIV also using these antiretroviral drugs, these drugs act against these enzymes only. And this one blocks the reverse transcriptase, one blocks this integrase, and one blocks this proteases. That is how it acts. And also inside the HIV genetic material, which consists of two identical copies of single stranded RNA. Now see how this HIV infection occurs. See, it has the HIV infection, how it occurs, because it has affinity for the CD4 T receptors. The GP41 and GP120, it has affinity for these cells, especially the white blood cells, which are the main first line defense mechanism of your body, and it destructs them, and as a result of which you become immunocompromised. See here. Here what we can see is the pathogenesis. See, the reverse transcriptase enzyme is first of all using the GP120, what it is causing? GP120, it is using this for this docking of this HIV viral material with that of the host cell, and then once it is incorporated inside the host cell, this reverse transcriptase acts and it synthesizes DNA of the viral DNA. Now using this integrase, what happens? This viral DNA gets integrated inside the host genome, and once using this host genome, it uses body's own cell mechanism to make more viral RNA materials. Now see, new viruses are forming at the cell membrane itself inside the host, and after that what happens? There is immature HIV virus replicating within your own body. This is how it compromises your immune system basically. It completely destroys the first line mechanism of defense and start producing its own viruses. So pathogenesis is the same, the attachment of the virus with the CD4 receptors, viral fusion and uncoating, reverse transcriptase is acting upon, and so that it is synthesizing its own DNA from its RNA. then migration to the nucleus, as well as integrase enzyme is acting and it is getting integrated within the host genome. It is using the body's own cellular mechanism to replicate, and after these things are getting replicated, the viral new viruses are getting produced within the host cell, and it is using the body's own immune response and everything to replicate basically. So now how it presents? So how it presents? Once you get infected with HIV, what happens? You have a flu-like illness, fever, malaise, body ache, but nothing specific, or sometimes no symptoms at all. You completely stay asymptomatic. You don't have any signs and symptoms. So you don't know that you are even infected with HIV or not. So the next stage comes up as C. The next stage is also asymptomatic. Initially it comes as a prodrome of fever, malaise, anything of that sort, but after that you becomes completely asymptomatic. Even if you are infected, you are not having any signs and symptoms, and this stage can last for at least 10 to 12 years also. You are very well asymptomatic and you even don't know what is it. Now comes the stage 3, that is a symptomatic stage where things go haywire basically. What happens, the person starts showing symptoms. You unnaturally, you start having fever, you become immunocompromised, you start having skin lesions or skin diseases, immune system deteriorates. As a result, what happens, the infections which are not common, such as fungal infections which are not common, these opportunistic infections become more prominent in those individuals. Now, this conversions of HIV to AIDS, the immune system completely breaks down, the illness becomes more severe, leads to AIDS, and the illness becomes more severe, leading to emergence of opportunistic infections as well as cancers. Now, how this HIV virus you think gets transmitted? One is obviously mother to child transmission, that is a vertical transmission we say. Another is blood to blood transmission as well as through unprotected sexual intercourse with the HIV positive individuals. In addition, what happens, if an infected pregnant woman can pass their HIV to a fetus if she is not taking antiretroviral therapy. See, body fluids that has been proven to spread HIV are this blood, semen, vaginal fluid, breast milk, other body fluids which contains blood such as ascitic fluid or anything of that sort, cerebrospinal fluid, spinal fluid as well as synovial fluid surrounding the bone joint. So, you have to be very cautious while dealing with such patients. Now, see, this is another picture showing how you can get exposed. Occupational exposure, it is, we are more prone for this occupational exposure, like during blood transfusion or during organ transplantation, during injection, drug abuse. So, these are the ways you should be knowing that HIV can be transmitted. What are the symptoms of this? The symptoms are very well, these things are generalized symptoms. You can have pain abdomen, you can have diarrhea, you can have anything, like there is no specific symptom. Now, what are the tests you can do to diagnose HIV? Name 2 specific tests. You have read all these things in microbiology. One is ELISA. ELISA is the most diagnostic as well as the most complementary test for this thing HIV. Another is Western blot. These are the 2 tests you can do for HIV. Now, coming to what is the manifestations in gynecology, I mean, why we are studying HIV in gynecology, because HIV in general population also they manifest as a single thing, but in HIV if it is manifesting in our population, like in gynae patients, what all manifestation the patient will have, what all things the patient will come up to you and you will suspect, okay fine, this is a case of HIV as well. So, see, women show the greatest increase in HIV in the recent years, especially 41% of the HIV positive patients were found in after this 1995 in the sub-Saharan and this lower socio-economic classes. So, now after this, especially what we can see is this, it affects women primarily in their reproductive years. See, 62% of the youth between 15 to 24 years are found to be HIV positive, especially in the South Asian and the sub-Saharan African regions. Why? Because here there's a low socio-economic strata, the education is poor, you don't know about the correct blood handling practices or correct handling of the seropositive patients. So, the education of these patients are very poor. So, they don't know the basic hygienic practices. So, that is the cause. See, the contributing factors are the gender inequality, prostitution, sexual violence, drug use, marriages, and lack of access to comprehensive information. This gynecological infections in HIV positive women are up to 63%, 83% at the time of hospitalization, and 9% are hospitalized for gynecological and sexual diseases. See how then, what are the things where you might find these people are HIV positive. While the patient comes to you with abnormal cervical discharge and you inspect her and see the cervix is badly eroded or there is some bad cervical erosions, and you take a pap smear, then you, and after giving her treatment also the patient is not responding to the normal course of therapy, then what do you suspect? That she might be immunocompromised. That's why her body's defense mechanism is not working out. So, there you test her for HIV and you find out that there is abnormal pap smear. See, in case of HIV positive patients, if you do a pap smear, abnormal pap smear incidence is 40%. HPV infection among them is 58%. Both conditions increases what? Increases the lower CD4 count and higher HIV-1 RNA levels. And precursor lesions to cervical cancer can be effectively treated at almost around 50%, even if you treat them. Then also there will be a recurrence since their immune system is not working out, because HPV viral DNA has also destroyed her CD4 cell count, and once she is infected with HIV, the CD4 count has gone further low. So, you cannot treat her as per the normal norms. See, precursor and maintaining a careful follow-up is much mandatory. So, menstrual disorders, as per say, HIV infection itself doesn't cause any menstrual disorders. What happens is, if she is infected with HIV, either of the two things can happen. She is on antiretroviral therapy or she is not. If she is on antiretroviral therapy, then also some drugs have certain side effects which causes menstrual disorders, or HIV itself is such a chronic disease that it has weakened her all systems. She is chronically anemic and she is having chronically low CD4 T count. So, her menstrual cycles become very irregular. She might complain of metrorrhagia, menorrhagia, oligomenorrhea, and even amenorrhea per se. See, HIV alone does not seem to cause any menstrual dysfunction. Related conditions are assumed to be responsible: severe weight loss, stress, chronic illness, psychiatric illness, and thrombocytopenia. All these are the responsible for her menstrual disorder. HIV itself does not causing any menstrual disorders. And even this effect of this antiretroviral drugs are not well studied, but hypomenorrhea reported with ritonavir. Even amenorrhea is related to the degree of immunosuppression. See, CD4 cell count is 200 to 500, amenorrheic is 9%, and CD4 count when it goes below 100, the percentage of amenorrheic people are 19%. So, it is significantly rising from 9 to 19%, almost 10% increase. HIV is associated with also, it is associated with what? It is also associated with SIL. What is SIL? Yeah, it is catheterization of cervical, what is the full form? Epithelial lesion. It is also, once a patient is, once you are doing a pap smear and the pap smear comes positive for this SIL, and now you check for her serology, or if previously also you know that this person is HIV positive. So, it is a we can say that HIV positive people, the prevalence is more compared to HIV negative patients. A SIL positive pap smear report, once you check the HIV status, it is 18% in case of HIV positive people, and it is far less, that 3 to 5% in case of a HIV negative people, and high grade SIL are more common in HIV positive people, and even abnormal cytology, histology associated independently with degree of immunosuppression, because HIV is causing immunosuppression. Already the immune system is broken down. Now it is, she is very prone to this HPV DNA virus, right? So, virus can easily act on her and she will have abnormal reports. So, the incidence of SIL depends upon HIV serostatus, CD4 count, HIV RNA level. Risk factors of progression and regression are the same. What all you should know about, that is CD4 cell count, her HIV RNA viral load status, and her HPV serostatus. What is her HPV status? The risk of CIN is 4.9 times more in case of HIV positive woman. See, SIL progresses faster, it is less responsive to standard treatment and is more likely to recur after treatment. So, what we discussed is the same only. Once a patient presents to you with her HIV positive report, you should always check her CD4 cell count, her HIV viral load, as well as her HPV DNA status, whether she is HPV, high risk HPV DNA, that is 16 and 18 positive or negative. If all these things are present, then you should know that this patient is difficult to treat. Even if she gets treated, then also things will recur and she won't respond to the standard regimen of treatment. Whatever we do for a HIV negative patient, same we do for a HIV positive patient, she is not likely to respond. This is what we are discussing. See, cervical involvement is more extensive and is likely to involve other sites such as vagina, vulva and perianal region. Even abnormal pap smear is associated with presence of HPV infection and degree of immunosuppression. Not only that, whenever you are treating with a HIV positive patients with some cervical lesion, you should be very much vigilant to see whether there is other parts of the vulva, vagina or the anal canal is also involved or not, because there might not be any signs and symptoms, but she is already infected because of this immunocompromised state. Now see the prognosis, as we discussed, the prognosis is very poor. Most common AIDS related malignancy is woman is cervical carcinoma. So it is almost 55%, lymphoma is 29% and Kaposi sarcoma is 16%. There is a high burden of cervical disease in HIV infected women, but epidemic of invasive cervical carcinoma is not that much. And with increased survival of HIV positive women with cases of cervical CA may develop. So, invasive cervical cancer, because why the invasive cervical cancer is more common in case of this thing HIV positive people? Because of the immune suppression, because of the lesser CD4 cell count, and because even if you screen them, even if you treat them, the recurrence is more, and when the recurrence occurs, they are more aggressive. See, they are more aggressive, they metastasize to the unusual sites such as iliopsoas muscle and diagnosed at the later stage because they do not have any signs and symptoms, they do not present with the usual signs and symptoms. 50% of the HIV positive women have stage 3 or stage 4 disease at the time of diagnosis and they are more likely to recur. Now, what are the another thing what they can present with is vulval and vaginal intraepithelial neoplasia. One is the cervical CA, another is the vulval and the vaginal CA. So, they are also more prevalent among the younger women, they have more rapid and aggressive course, and invasive vulvar CA is more common in the immunocompromised patients than in the invasive cervical cancer. And the risk of developing cancer from a vulvar or anal or in renal transplant is 100 times than the general population, whereas cervical cancer is only 13.6 fold. So, sexually transmitted infections in HIV positive patients are also more. It is more common in sexually transmitted diseases HPV. Again, it is more common in a HIV positive patient. The HPV DNA is an immunocompromised female. It is almost 2.8 to 5.7% as compared to that of a HIV negative patient. Lifetime risk is 70 to 79%. SIL occurs in 48% of the HIV positive and HPV negative women and 16 women and 24% of the HIV positive women with other HPV serotypes. So, the difference 48% in case of HIV positive and 5% in case of HIV negative. See the huge disease burden lows in between these two. See, HPV is in a normal population where HIV infection is not there. Then what happens, even she is managed within regular regimens or she is managed conservatively, then what happens, HPV DNA infection is eradicated within 6 to 36 weeks. But whenever we do a pap smear and we do the liquid based cytology, we find that okay fine, she is the liquid based cytology is positive for HPV DNA, that is 16 and 18. Now we give her a time, okay fine, you come for another after 6 months, you come after 6 months you come up to us for pap smear and we see her pap smear again and we see that okay fine, the HPV DNA viral load has been cleared, but suppose she is now infected with HIV. Now what happens is persistence of this HPV DNA is there. It is not cleared on its own within 6 to 36 weeks. normal population who is having her normal CD4 count and she is not immunocompromised, then body's own immune system is there to wash off her infection. HPV DNA infection, body is capable of washing it off by its own in 6 to 36 weeks, we say 6 months. But if she is HIV positive, then what happens is, see, persistence of high risk HPV DNA is associated with 14 to 40 times increased risk of developing HCL. And independent risk factors which HPV DNA positive are young age, not being currently married, HIV seropositivity, CD4 count less than 200 per ml. So, this is where the things go wrong. CD4 cell count is less, as well as she is HIV seropositive with high viral DNA load. And persistence of this high risk type leads to what? Development of cancer. Possible explanations are this: HPV antibodies are not protective, because how it will protect? Your immune system is already compromised. And now this plays an important role in modulating HPV DNA associated disease. What are these diseases? These are Langerhans cells and macrophages, and lack of the CTL responses to HPV DNA, HPV 16E6 associated with HPV persistence. What actually happens is this HPV DNA 16, it uses this viral E6 particle to infect your body's immune system, and since your immune system is already broken down, it causes what? HPV DNA starts multiplying in your body, and there is persistence of infection. Your body is not capable of eliminating this infection. Now this STAT protein in HIV upregulates this HPV expression and downregulates its repression, because body's own gene such as RB gene and the P53 gene causes what? Downregulation of this repression. But since the HIV produces this STAT protein, this STAT protein upregulates this HPV expression, and HPV and HIV do not co-infect cervical epithelial cells or co-localize in cervical tissues. Hence, a direct molecular interaction between HPV and occur in vivo, and they presumably are mediated by extracellular factors only. See, risk of persistence is 16 to 18 times. It is rarely eliminated, and DNA is detected more frequently and prevalent rate of 95%. See, what we have talked about, that it stays for a longer period of time, and it is persistent of 3 to 12 months periods, what 20% more in case of a HIV positive. So, from this we know, see, HIV infection itself is a risk factor for anogenital HPV infections as well. So, it is both latent and clinically expressed HPV infections. So, genital herpes simplex infection also is more frequent and more prolonged. Whatever genital infection you know will be more prevalent and more common in presence of an HPV, in presence of an HIV seropositive woman. Even viral shedding, the person being infective for a long period of time, increases with declining CD4 count, and most viral sheddings are asymptomatic. They might be infective without any signs and symptoms. They will be spreading disease, but they won't be having any signs and symptoms. Same occurs with syphilis. HIV infected patients have abnormal serological tests, usually high risk titers, false negatives, delayed seroreactivity. Clinical presentation is very variable at stages, and atypical manifestation may be seen in setting of HIV disease. See, neurosyphilis should be considered in case of neurological signs and symptoms in HIV positive individuals as well. Generally, it takes time for a neurosyphilis to develop, but in case of HIV positive patients, again, the disease progression is rapid, and once you find some neurological manifestation, you should always rule out neurosyphilis. And they are very difficult to treat. See, their acyclovir resistance is common, and it is reported almost 6.4%. And as a result, resistance are low CD4 count and long term exposure to acyclovir, and most isolates are susceptible to IV foscarnet and per oral cidofovir. Generally, what happens in case of HSV infection, herpes simplex infection, we treat the patients with acyclovir and they respond well. But in case of HIV positive patients, what happens? They have resistance to acyclovir. They don't respond to usual regimen of treatment. In those cases, we have to use IV foscarnet or per oral cidofovir. In case of PID also, generally what happens? We give normal oral medications or IV drugs in case of this PID patients. But in symptomatic HIV infection, the increased frequency and severity of PID occurs because of local immunity is impaired. rates of colonization, but anaerobic bacteria is higher, and both HIV and organisms which cause PID are sexually transmitted diseases. See, vulvovaginal candidiasis is also a very common cause, and prevalence of vulvovaginal candidiasis in HIV positive women is almost as high as 3 to 15%, and it further increases with decrease in the CD4 counts. 26 to 27% of the vaginal isolates are non-albicans strains. Generally what happens is Candida albicans causes vulvovaginal candidiasis. This is the most common organism causes vulvovaginal candidiasis. But in case of HIV infection, what happens? This atypical varieties, non-albicans species or strains causes this vulvovaginal candidiasis in HIV positive women. It is usually the first presenting symptoms, and topical therapies may be more effective when given for at least 7 days. Antifungals are given when antibiotics are also. Fluconazole 200 mg per oral is given weekly. Prophylaxis of candidiasis in women with CD4 counts less than 300. What happens is fungal infections, as we have studied, is more common in case of HIV infected woman. So what we do is we prophylactically give them antifungal agents so that she does not develop this atypical candida infections. And we have to use fluconazole 200 mg per week for in patients with CD4 count less than 300, and it is effective in preventing vaginal and oropharyngeal candidiasis as well. So, in case of response to standard antibiotic regimen similar to HIV negative, but some studies have shown that there is increased incidence of tubo-ovarian mass as well. The PID infection is so severe that it has led to pelvic infections, and it has led to formation of a tubo-ovarian mass. See, gonorrhea is same, the same is true for chlamydia trachomatis as well. See, so in case of patient who is having a vaginal discharge or so vaginal irritation or any kind of vaginal infection and she is HIV positive, what you should do is, at least you should always examine her, and at least what you can do is you can prevent the recurrence. How will you prevent? You ask for a pap smear 3 to 4 monthly for at least 1 year, and then 6 monthly. For pre-invasive lesion, colposcopy is indicated for cytological abnormality, treatment of untreated abnormal pap smear, evidence of HPV infection, and screening colposcopy with CD4 count less than 200. So, you should always go for this. Generally, even in case of infection, what we do is we generally do not go for pap smear or we do not go for this colposcopy. But if she is HIV infected, you should always go for colposcopy and see what is it. You should always take cervical biopsies and call her for follow-up every 3 to 4 monthly, at least for first 1 year, so that you know that the disease is not recurring or she is not progressing. And once you know her CD4 counts are also low, you should be more vigilant. Why? Because this recurrence of after treatment is also over 50%, and cryotherapy has the highest rate of recurrence and should be avoided. Most of the time what we do is we do a cryotherapy for these patients. But in case if this HIV positive patients, we do not do cryotherapy, we use topical 5-fluorouracil cream, which where the recurrence rates are lesser after standard treatment for HCl in HIV positive women. So, you should always be knowing about all these things. This was all about HIV in gynecology, like nothing much or nothing less, and HIV in pregnancy will be a bigger topic, it will be taught separately to you. So, basic mechanism or basic concept over here is lesser the CD4 count, they will come up to with in an asymptomatic stage in a atypical manifestation, and you should be vigilant and about the standard doses of therapies, as well as you should be knowing that they won't respond to them. You call them more frequently for follow-up, do not cause discriminations, and at least you should take yourself protection that you should not get infected from them, and you should know that recurrence is more for them. So, they should be called up frequently for follow-up and treated like that only, and they do not respond to usual dosage and usual modalities of treatment. That was the thing.